Good afternoon, New Orleans, or wherever you may be. It's Wednesday at 4, so this must be the Baldy and the Blonde show. I'm Tom Kowitz with Michelle Godin. Michelle, say hello.
Hello, everyone. Super Bowl's over.
I didn't even watch.
I know you didn't,
Didn't watch.
But I have to tell you that New Orleans was looking mighty fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was a beautiful thing. We did a great job. And it went off without a hitch, and I thought the pregame show...
Lights stayed on?
Lights stayed on.
The whole time?
Pregame show was beautiful. Why? Because what's New Orleans known for? Hospitality, food, and what? Music. And so the pregame show featured New Orleans musicians, Trombone Shorty, Harry Connick Jr., some choirs, the Southern Marching Band. It was phenomenal. And then you had the halftime show, which I know everybody's heard a million times. But really, my understanding is, first it was terrible to me. I am a boomer, so okay. But to all the young people in my family, they were really mad that it wasn't Lil Wayne, and who's a New Orleans guy. And also some silly thing, and we can move right on from this, but it was about is this true, Kobe, that it was about a fight between the singer and Drake?
Yes.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it's some kind of personal grudge fight that's what happened at the Super Bowl. Stupid. But anyway, moving on, because we have the Super Bowl of sludge and scams and money laundering
Well, you're not kidding
and
about
theft from the American people. But, you know, it's all for aid, Tom.
Right.
It's for aid for people. It's for the U.S.
It's for a good
aid group, which,
But,
by
hey-
the way, they've never been called.
Hang on. You said a key word earlier that
Yes.
I got to address that.
All right.
You said you're a boomer. I'm a boomer. Boomers get a bad rap in this culture. Like we're stupid.
Shut up,
or
boomer.
whatever. But let me tell you something. I don't even know if I've shared this with you yet. But if you listened last week, we opened the show with I mentioned that I got rear-ended in a hit-and-run accident.
Yep.
Well, guess what? They found the other driver. I'm not going to obviously identify her, but it's an 18-year-old young lady. Get this. I just got the police report.
This is unbelievable.
I just did get it. That's why I haven't even shared this with you. She told the cops she did not even apply the brakes because she thought the car would brake automatically.
Boomer.
And yet,
Right.
yet boomers are stupid and don't know how to operate devices and whatever.
The car was going to
It's a
stop itself.
4,000-pound machine of death.
Yes.
And she did not even apply the brakes because I thought it would stop by itself. Come on, man.
It's pathetic.
So anyway, so take that boomer stuff and shove it. 'Cause
Uh-huh.
We got
I
things
hear
figured
it.
out.
I hear
pretty
it.
well.
We got, well, put it this way. We were talking about it. It used to be there was a guy in the Senate named Senator Proxmire. He was a Democrat, and every year he gave the Golden Fleece Awards, and he would highlight the most ridiculous spending of taxpayers'
And none
money.
of those were as bad as the stuff we're
No,
seeing
they're
now.
not even close. Like the one I remember was something like NASA spent, I don't know, like $1 million on a toilet, or just something stupid, or a hammer. I don't know. But we used to all think, wow, imagine if we could really see where all the money goes. Well.
Right. That is what we used to
Right.
think growing up, because this has been going on
Well.
for a long, long time. Decades ago was when the William Proxmire was
Yes,
doing those.
a long time ago.
And growing up, you would just think, oh, wow, if they could just shine a light on all this stuff once and for all and publicize it
Yes.
and get it out there, we'd solve this. And now they have. And now you have 22 states and the District of Columbia suing in federal court to not allow the president to freeze these payments.
Yeah, and they don't even want it to be. They don't even want it to see the light of day.
You're right.
Cockroaches in the corner. Everybody, get to your corners. Hide. Here's the light. Hide, because and the reason I called it mockingly U.S. aid is because it has nothing to do with aiding the poor.
No.
Despite Democrat hysteria and lies. It is called the U.S. Agency for International Development.
Yes.
And it is, I mean, throwing our money away. $46 billion. And the Democrats don't want to cut a thing. They don't want us to know what's in there. They're worried that I don't know. that an audit somehow is inappropriate. And the reason we're able to find this, despite their extreme efforts to hide it, in other words, you and I and everyone else in the world who's responsible somehow has a memo for what a check they wrote is for. No, not them.
Nope.
Just a check. Nobody, no, maybe not even a payee sometimes, but no coding like, legal expense or airplane tickets, whatever. They don't code it. So,
Gee, I wonder why.
the reason we're getting to the bottom of this is because Elon Musk, a patriotic genius, right, has brought in a crew of engineers who have developed a way to look through massive amounts of data, no doubt with an AI program that has algorithms that can find things that the human cannot find quickly.
But you know what? And AI is relatively new, but this sort of thing could have been done decades ago.
Well, of course.
Easily, and which is just proof that nobody wanted to before.
Well, they don't want us to know where the money's going.
I mean, seriously, including Trump in his first term. I mean,
He
where
could
was
have.
he? Nobody. It was this easy.
To be honest, he didn't know.
No, but the point is that Doge stepped in, and yes, it's been temporarily
But he should have.
stopped. But it's this easy.
Well, it's
Like
not being stopped. There's a massive effort
it's
by
temporarily
Democrats to
stopped by this
stop
lawsuit.
it.
Yes.
Yes.
The point is, all someone had to do was this.
Yeah.
And we were thinking it had to be like, oh, the president needs to submit a much more responsible budget, and Congress shouldn't be passing all this waste. No, it doesn't need any of this. This is all it takes, and nobody's ever done it till now.
And can you imagine
What the hell?
what are they gonna find in the Department of the Education Department? Oh my God! Because what do we need a federal Department of Education for? So we send tax dollars to the feds for them to piss around to a million, NGOs and friends of the family and God only knows what else. And then what's left after the graft and corruption comes to the state? How about we just eliminate them?
Just don't have it.
What in the world?
And let me tell you something. They're looking for waste, fraud, and abuse. The problem is who gets to define the terms. Because if you let me define it, it's all 100%
Yeah, I agree.
is waste, fraud, and abuse. It's all wasted. It's all fraudulent. And it's abusive to take my money and future generations' money and give it out and not even disclose where it's going. How's that not abusive? All of it.
And not only that, but I guess most Americans, no, because Americans can't believe what the Democrats are doing right now. But we are $36 trillion
And counting. Maybe it's up to 37 by now.
So that the interest on the debt exceeds what we pay every year for the Defense Department.
That's
I mean,
right.
it
It's
is
approaching $1 trillion.
psychotic. And then there's something else called unfunded liabilities, which maybe we'll do a whole show on, and that is 121 trillion. So, I mean, why we would want to hang on to like expenditures of how to make atheist in Nepal.
But you know what? And you could go down the list and read a few of the most egregious ones. But honestly, you don't have to read any.
They're all terrible.
Every single one is waste, fraud, and abuse. Probably all of the above. There should be let me ask you this. What are you going to do? And listeners, ask yourself this too. What are you going to do with that check that you receive from all those foreign countries sending aid to the U.S.?
Right.
That's to be dispersed among these stupid pet programs that they have.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. There's zero countries sending us money.
Nobody sent us
We're the ones sending the money.
What is that? So I mean, just the slush funds, because even like the creep Zelensky, right? He's saying that out of the $200 billion that we sent to Ukraine, he only got 77. Now look,
Only.
who knows what
There's like
who's
a
telling
missing
this, but I mean,
100 billion.
Right.
Well, and there probably is.
I mean, the day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld, we've talked about this before, was the Secretary of Defense, and on that day said he could not account for $2 trillion. But poof, it all went up in smoke on 9/11. So there went the paperwork.
And that was just the Pentagon.
That
it was
was
like
just the
2.3
Pentagon.
trillion with a T. Couldn't account for it.
Yeah, with a T.
And
it's never.
And he didn't say it like, oh wow, there's real trouble. We can't. What he was saying it was, we need more money to upgrade our system so we can then account for it. And they still, to this day, have not passed an audit. The Pentagon has not.
And the Treasury Secretary, which we'll talk about when we come back more about him, real, dry, straight arrow, although he's gay, he was saying that, that he has to be able to audit, and a federal judge has ordered him not to look at the expenditures of the department that he is the secretary of. I mean, I don't know. And then with just a few other things, like we are literally paying to have conservatives censored, to have Soros-funded DAs who meet once a month, according to the memo I read,
and don't
to
forget,
tell them don't jail people who shoplift. All these things that have wreaked havoc across America.
What about Hamas?
And Hamas got money.
And the Wuhan lab in China.
The Wuhan lab, so that they could pull off the lockdown of the world. And anyway, we're going to a break. This is Baldy and the Blonde. You can follow us on X at Baldy Blonde, and we'll be back after the break.
I'm a superstar.
I'm a superstar. Yeah. Anyway, this is Baldy and the Blonde. I'm Michelle Godin along with Tom Coe. It's here every Wednesday at 4. And you can catch our shows at baldyandtheblonde.com, where they are without commercials. Tom, are you caught up on those? Because we were behind on that.
I am behind.
Can you please catch us up? Thank you. I
And
need to pull the mic down.
I know. I've actually got some emails about that.
Yeah, I thought so, because I have received a few too. We're like 3 weeks behind.
No,
for
I'm
some...
I'm not. I'm 1 week behind.
Okay. Anyway, we're behind, but normally you can listen there without listening to commercials. If not, you can go to WGSO.com, and the commercials are on there, but I think you can fast forward. And you can follow us on social media. I recommend X at Baldy Blonde and Baldy and the Blonde radio show on Facebook. But nobody really seems to use Facebook very much. So anyway, we were talking about the scandalous use and abuse of our taxpayer dollars, and I, for the life of me, cannot understand, why the Democrats are literally choosing to die on this hill. How dare you
you do know why.
No, I do, because they're getting the money. And it
Absolutely.
They've bought off Politico, the New York Times. Who contributes to, I believe CBS was in the group. I'm not sure about that.
CBS was in there. Yes.
And they're all getting money.
So we
pretend that there's some Democrat movement out there when it is 100% engineered. Well, not 100%.
And you wonder
There's
why they
probably
edited Harris's
some
video.
people that love authoritarianism. But Harris's video, we now know on 60 Minutes, was scandalously edited. And oh, by the way, they got money from the Democrats, right?
Remember when we were kids and there was a Soviet
that's
Union?
Shocking, yeah.
We used to laugh at TASS and Pravda as being sources for reporting, right?
Right.
They were state-owned. I'm not saying that this is TASS and Pravda with Politico and CBS.
Well, I think it's pretty close.
But it's down that road.
Might be worse.
I think it is,
actually.
Okay,
as bad
part of it is worse because it's hidden, the fact that they're being state-supported.
And not only that, but those are the very same people, these leftist communists pretending to be Democrats, who lecture us about democracy. Actually, I can't stand to hear the word coming out of their lips anymore.
Wait, lecturing us on what?
Democracy.
Oh, well.
And how...
how about this? How they cite the Constitution.
And they trample it. And they are for censorship. They are for mandatory vaccines. And if we had lost this election, this show would not be on the air. And neither would most of the podcasts you listen to. But absolutely, they would have, because they used this word misinformation to censor, and all of this we now found out, and we're going to find out a whole lot more, was being funded by us, basically, to put ourselves in a jail cell. That's basically what it is. And a jail cell of lack of information, lack of freedom, and we find out that we are funding it, the American taxpayer. What a freaking joke.
Well,
And the Wuhan thing? Come on.
Every single expenditure, particularly with foreign aid and just about everything that Doge has uncovered and everything else that will be uncovered, is unconstitutional.
Yeah.
The federal government is very limited by, if you read the Constitution and limit it yourself to that language, well, the left likes to cite it.
Well, they cite it, but they don't read it.
And they don't live by it ever. But they'll cite it when it's convenient. Even though they don't live by it ever, they will cite it. not one thing is constitutional.
Well, Tom,
that-
wait a minute.
like-
You have to admit the Department of Education and
Where-
Politico
How
and
it- where-
funding of newspapers. That's all in the Constitution.
Yeah.
Isn't that in Article 3?
It's in Article 666, I think.
Article
Pretty
6
sure.
Right. So,
How dare they cite the Constitution?
how dare they? So, anyway, these cases that have been brought all over the country have been selectively brought. I can, as a lawyer, tell you that, there are certain courts that are much more liberal than others. And if you, for example, have an accident case, probably going to do better in Orleans Parish than you are in Jefferson. St. Tammany. And that's just the way it rolls. But on cases like this, they have selectively chosen courts that they know are favorable to Democrats. And when, let's say, the state of Rhode Island is one of the plaintiffs, I think. Are they?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so they filed the suit. That doesn't mean that the people of Rhode Island were polled.
Yeah, right.
And,
Yeah,
ask,
good
do
point.
y'all all want to stand up for the theft that's going on in my opinion, theft that's going on at the highest level from taxpayers' money to give out to crazy causes all over the world, while veterans are homeless in the street, while people in North Carolina have not been helped and are living in tents, while the people in California have been burned to a crisp due to idiot Democrat policies. How about it? Rhode Island, y'all want to stand up on the side of the scam government or for the people and taxpayers of the United States? Well, I don't think there was any kind of vote taken, but all you need is a few plaintiffs, i.e. a couple of scam artist Democrat types, in my opinion, to become plaintiffs in those cases, and you can file them. And, of course, they're allotted to Democrat judges. Okay, so we're going to talk about two of the cases, right?
This particular judge.
Well,
which
which one? We're going to talk about two. Let me set it up. One is a judge issued a temporary restraining order, which means you may not do anything, prohibiting the freezing of funds even in areas where there's certainly evidence of fraud. The second one is even more absolutely ridiculous. A judge ordered the executive branch to put information back on government websites run by the executive branch, not by the judges, putting up things about transgender and children's transformation, gender, fluidity, etc., on government websites.
Okay,
Now,
obviously that one's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous.
But nowhere near as damaging. It's like that affects hardly anybody.
Right.
Right.
But
the other one is very, very
harmful,
damaging. So, in fact, I just wanted to just read a couple little. I've got the order, the judge's order here.
Yep.
And in this is great. In the first sentence in his order, he doesn't even know how to spell judgment. He's a judge. And I mean, come on, that right there. He doesn't even know how to
English.
spell. Well, no,
Tom's
he's
English master.
Well, no, I mean,
No, you
it's
are
elementary.
but it is elementary.
I mean, come on, that's rather telling. For everything that follows, he's a judge, doesn't know how to spell the
Hit
word.
it fast because we got a minute and 29, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Catholics.
He just talks about how that it's destructive to a wide portion of or very damaging to a wide portion of the country.
How?
Really? Well, what about the $37 trillion debt that we have? Is that not destructive?
That's real damaging.
Is anybody addressing that? And,
No.
And what leads to that is this kind of abuse and waste and fraud
Yeah.
and theft. And that's how we got there. We should have streets paved with freaking gold
Right,
everywhere in
and
this
we
country.
would if we
have
didn't
nothing to show
have
for it.
our country stealing us blind. Now we know. We're always like, what are they doing with our money? Now we're
Right.
going to have a peek at it if and only if we can get around these judges. And let me tell you, a very respected lawyer wrote an article saying the Congress created the federal judges, and the Congress can abolish them. And guess what then happens? Then the first level becomes the circuit courts, and the second and last is the Supreme Courts. And the Supreme Court handles like 100 cases a year. Their workload is going to get a lot bigger.
I hope it does.
So, because the idea that one judge in Rhode Island can take away the will of the people who voted for Trump to get Elon Musk and others to strip the theft that's been going on in these budgets is crazy. One guy. All right, Baldy and the Blonde will be back in a few talking about the Catholics and their involvement.
Come back to the Baldy and the Blonde Show. I'm Tom Coates with Michelle Godin. I'm going to throw it Michelle's way because she's jonesing to go on about something. What is it?
Well, I want to talk about the Catholic Church's
yeah.
role, and I am particularly personally offended as a lifelong Catholic. Not always a good practicing Catholic, but for a while now I have been. So, come to find out, and I've been following a guy, Todd Bensman, and I forget the other guy's name. Anyway, they've been following the Catholic Charities and other NGOs that not only were accepting money from the federal government to aid in the illegal immigrant invasion of our country under different pretexts, but they actually were all the way down in South America giving people instructions and maps, and not necessarily Catholic charities, but some of them giving people rape kits because everyone knew they were going to get raped on the way here. And you know, that's just revolting to me that they've been participants in this. So there's the Pope, the most left Pope, I think, at least certainly in my lifetime, a complete leftist from the Argentinian Marxist way of thinking, gave a scolding letter to the American people, telling us that basically we had to, in order to be good Christians, we had to accept immigrants. And he, of course, lives where, Tom?
Behind a big giant wall?
A wall. Are immigrants welcome in the Vatican?
Oh, yeah. You didn't see the news today?
No.
Oh, there's tens of thousands are camping out.
Is that right?
Actually, I lied. There's zero.
There's zero, yeah. It's against the law, and I'm pretty sure you'll be arrested if you even try to pitch a tent and sleep overnight. But he says that America needs to accept the immigrants, and he is against our desire to have deportation.
Oh, yeah. He called the deportation the crisis.
He said
the crisis was what's happened over the
major.
last few years.
He has I have followed closely the major crisis that is taking place in the United States with the initiation of a program of mass deportation.
Imagine calling that the crisis.
Yeah, like as if the invasion
that wasn't the crisis.
into a country teetering on bankruptcy and, you know, causing all... The only country in the world, apparently, that's required to have an open border is us. And then he says something that I'd like you to think about whether you ever heard him say anything like this about abortion or the Catholics, so-called Catholics like Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, etc. Let's just think about whether he said this, because this is a slap in the face at J.D. Vance, as you'll see in a minute. The rightly formed conscience cannot fail to make a critical judgment and express its disagreement with any measure that tacitly or explicitly identifies the illegal status of some migrants with criminality. I mean, did you hear him ever take that tone of scolding and, you know, Big Daddy the teacher with anybody about abortion? No, never. However, the church is making millions, some say 100, some say 300 million, on illegal immigration, allegedly to provide shelter.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Okay.
Anyway, so we're going to play you the reaction of the Pope's letter, and you can read the whole thing online. From Border Czar Tom Homan, who is a Catholic, and I thought, as usual, his response was pithy and on point.
Now, the original of this audio was really hard to understand.
Yeah.
So it's going to sound a little odd because I had to remove the distortion.
Yeah, it was.
So it sounds a little bit flat when you hear it,
Yeah.
but you can hear it more clearly.
He was outside, and it was real noisy.
The Pope this morning had some very harsh words for the
That's hard to understand. She's saying that the Pope just issued some very harsh words and then this is where Homan cuts her off.
Well, yeah, harsh words for the Pope. Pope won't fix the Catholic Church. I'm saying this as a lifelong Catholic. I was baptized Catholic. I was first communion as a Catholic, confirmation as a Catholic. We ought to fix the Catholic Church and concentrate on his work and leave border enforcement to us. He wants to attack us for securing our border. He's got a wall around the Vatican, does he not? So he's got a wall around to protect his people and himself, but we can't have a wall around the United States. So I wish he'd stick to the Catholic Church and fix that and leave border enforcement to us.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. What business is it if the Pope's
It's none of his
on
business.
whether we have an open border or closed border? Now, I understand that if there was human rights abuses here,
Sure.
of course he should speak up, just like anybody should speak up. But to say that it's a crisis,
Yeah.
that we're deporting people who came here illegally, and remember, the first deportees, the majority of them are known criminals.
Which many cities are hiding their known
Well,
criminals.
right.
So they're letting them out of jail so that the border agents have to go look for them at their houses or wherever they're hiding and place themselves at risk. And these are unvetted people. God only knows who's here, right?
Did he ever say it's a crisis in their home country that they're living in poverty? Why are they living in poverty and under tyrannies there? What types of governments do they have?
He's got nothing bad to say about the governments
No,
that
he
are
does
so
not.
tyrannical that people try to get away, or that create economic conditions by doing
Right.
what our government does,
Why-
steal all the money from the people.
Why is that not a crisis in their home country? So he doesn't talk about that.
No, he's a Marxist. That's all there is to it. He identifies as a globalist Marxist. People that are Catholic that really follow him, he's got a lot of extremely controversial things. Even the way he signs his name, he doesn't refer to himself as the Vicar of Christ. Now that is just bizarre for the Pope. Okay, so anyway, let's hear. Then that he was also responding to J.D. Vance, who had made a statement that, and this is something that's been around forever in Catholic theology and also just makes common sense, and it's called Ordo Amoris, meaning the order of love. And sounds fancy, but all it is that most people agree that there's an order to how you prioritize who you're going to take care of, and God, family, and then your extended family, and then your community, and then your country, and then after that, the world. Now yes, it's theological, but it's also pretty much
Well, it's
common
also real.
sense.
It's real world.
It's real world.
Yeah,
That's what
yes,
people do.
Exactly. It's a
Like-
theory and theological, but
Right.
also it's the way you would live your life, just
Like-
a normal person.
Like, would you tell your daughter, honey, listen, I know tuition is due, but I gave all the money to Nepal.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well,
That's,
the problem
that's
is
immoral.
we really did, unwittingly anyway.
All right, we did. The country did. So
Right.
let's play this is the way WWL, I'm sorry to say, in New Orleans, this is the way they covered the J.D. Vance versus the Pope, and this is how they characterized J.D. Vance. And what I thought was extremely wrong.
The Pope also addressed comments by Vice President J.D. Vance where he used Catholic theology to justify the immigration crackdown. Vance converted to Catholicism in 2019. In an appearance on Fox News, Vance claimed a medieval Catholic concept
Medieval.
of
Medieval.
Yeah, medieval.
That's very damning to her. She thinks she's being critical. Where it's damning to her is that means it's basically timeless. This goes back hundreds of years for a reason. It's
Right.
human nature.
It's human nature.
It's not like it's archaic. It's timeless.
All right, back that up so people can hear it again. Understand that what we just discussed, the order of love, family, God, family, community, then outside of your community, as medieval
converted
theology.
to Catholicism in 2019. In an appearance on Fox News, Vance claimed a medieval Catholic concept of Ordo Amoris meant there was a hierarchy of Christian love, starting with your family, then your neighbor, then your community, and so on.
Imagine.
The Pope's letter today says, quote, Christian love is not a concentric expansion of interest that little by little extends to other persons and groups, but rather the concept is similar to the parable of the Good Samaritan.
There you go.
Well, let's talk about that.
So the Pope doesn't believe in Ordo Amoris,
Let's
or
talk
the
about-
order of love.
Or he's not very familiar with the parable of the Good Samaritan.
Well, in his
Because-
letter says, "Oh, the Good Samaritan stands for the concept that you have open borders, America."
Not at all. Where's that in that parable?
Exactly.
Basically, you come across someone in person that you see is indeed in need, and you help that person, even though they're a stranger and
Person to person.
potentially an enemy, right?
Yes.
Fine. But this has what's happening now has nothing to do with that. We're having money stolen from us, sent overseas to ostensibly help people, or open our borders to ostensibly help people, that we don't know if it's legitimate and that they're legitimately in
Right.
need. The Good Samaritan could see that this person was in need.
It was a personal thing.
Yeah,
It was
yes.
person to person. And I'll just read you his sentence. This is the Pope going against medieval theology about the order of love. The true ordo amoris that must be promoted is that which we discover by meditating constantly on the parable of the Good Samaritan. Please. Okay. So now let's listen to what J.D. Vance actually said in his medieval discussion of the order of love.
There's this old school, and I think it's a very Christian concept, by the way, that you love your family, and then you love your neighbor, and then you love your community, and then you love your fellow citizens in your own country, and then after that, you can focus and prioritize the rest of the world. A lot of the far left has completely inverted that. They seem to hate the citizens of their own country and care more about people outside their own borders. That is no way to run a society. And I think the profound difference that Donald Trump brings to the leadership of this country is the simple concept, America first. It doesn't mean you hate anybody else. It means that you have leadership, and President Trump has been very clear about this, that puts the interests of American citizens first. In the same way that the British Prime Minister should care about Brits and the French should care about the French, we have an American president who cares primarily about Americans, and that's a very welcome change.
Amen to that. I mean,
Doesn't sound very controversial to me. We have finite. Now, you could have, I suppose, an infinite amount of love, but you don't have an infinite amount of resources and money.
no.
You have to prioritize
Right, of course
it.
you can pray for and do all of that kind of Christian good works for people, and you can personally contribute. But we're talking here about government stealing from us and giving it to other people while Americans suffer. This is Baldy and the Blonde. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Baldy and the Blonde. I'm Michelle Godin, along with Tom Coates here every Wednesday at 4, and all shows available at baldyandtheblonde.com without commercials. We were just talking about the slush funds up in D.C. and where our money's actually been going all these years and why we are $36 trillion in debt. And why, I guess, we might get to the bottom of why all of these senators are worth $200, $300 million when they make $200,000 a year. I'd love to know that. But anyway, we were speaking on the last segment about the Catholic Church's participation in the illegal invasion monetarily. And I just wanted to say real quick that, you know, we've had bad popes before, lots of them. And I think it's my opinion that this pope is a bad pope, but that we will survive. And the gates of hell will not prevail against us, I believe. But anyway, we were looking at the ongoing, disgusting waste of our taxpayer dollars, and Tom's going to bring it home to New Orleans. Let me just mention one thing, though, before we get to New Orleans. I thought, you know, here we have these federal judges going crazy that, oh, wow, I issued an order overturning the executive order saying you can't stop the spending. But when the executive order was in effect and no judges had weighed in, it turns out that the Slush Fund sent $59 million last week to New York for more illegals to live in hotels. And now, let's shine a light on the New Orleans cockroach situation.
Well, and actually, you know what? Before we get to that, we talked a couple of weeks ago about the three bridges between Louisiana and Mississippi.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
They've been shut for years, and best case scenario, they won't open for till 2028, I think. And a lot of people need that for evacuation routes.
Yeah.
But we can't get to that.
Oh, no.
Can't get to that.
No, we're busy sending.
Yeah, that would be waste, fraud, and abuse to repair bridges.
We do have transsexual operas, however, in South America or Guatemala or something. In Sesame Street in Iran.
You speak about that as if it's wasteful
As if
or
it's
fraudulent
bad.
or abusive.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
bad.
so there's an article on NOLA.com. I think it's there right now, just published today.
Yep.
The headline is Trump funding freeze leaves long list of environmental projects at risk in New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
Now, it's way too long to go over all of it. I'm just going to actually just go over a couple of quotes that are very telling.
Yep.
it just depends on which lens you're viewing this through. So one of the quotes is says having 3.5 million in federal grants was absolutely a game changer, but it also put all of our eggs in one basket, said some foundation founder who was going to. They got 3.5 million to plant trees, 3.5 million, but she said, but it also put all of our eggs in one basket. Well, whose fault is that? Why are you relying specifically on federal grants? You don't have to stop there, but notice how comfortable they must have been, knowing that the gravy train's always going to be there.
Always.
I mean, why did you put all of your eggs in one basket? Why didn't you think?
What they do.
Why didn't you think, wow, you know what? We've been having this great gravy train, but we can't count on it forever. No, that never occurred to them.
Because it's a federal, it's relying on federal funds.
Well,
not having to hustle and raise money yourself. And if you want to plant trees, I could think with 1 second how you solve that problem. Just like
Volunteer.
park and parkways, I don't know how active the program is now, but for years, the way the neutral grounds were maintained was by volunteers.
Well, of course.
Okay,
well, that leads to
Park and Parkway
here's a great
Partners,
one.
they called it.
Says, what kills me is this rhetoric that the government shouldn't be funding trees. Who else is going to fund it?
That's
Well,
a quote from the person
the-
at the place that was getting the money.
Yes, and
called
so
Soul.
first of all, the government isn't funding the trees. You know how I know that? Because the government has no money. The people funding the
That's
trees,
right.
it's you.
That's right.
It's me. It's my daughter, and it's my daughter's unborn child. And if you wonder why I sound so upset, is I got everything I need. If I died tomorrow, I had my life.
Yep.
But my daughter has not yet lived out her full life, and her unborn child, well,
Yeah, your
we know
grandchild.
what the left cares about unborn children. So, of course,
yeah.
they're giving that
and the
child
Catholic Church,
finger.
too, yeah.
Yes. So the government is not funding this. You people need to
That's
realize
true.
you're stealing from us, which is, and you raised a great point about the parable of the Good Samaritan,
Yep.
that it was volunteered.
And person to
So,
person, not the government sending money to
The
Egypt at the time.
the Good Samaritan did not go door to door with a gun by force and say, give me some money
Yeah.
because I want to give it to that guy over there that you don't even know, you've never met, and you don't even know he exists.
Oh, and you hear the crybabies on the left. But what about charity? Well, charity is not a government activity. Charity is your personal responsibility.
course.
And if people, honestly, if they weren't so taxed, they could be more charitable. But even in spite of our overtaxed, overburdened condition of broke United States of America, the people are generous. And the people would continue to be generous, and more so if they had the God only knows billions
Well,
that
how
have
much
been
more would
stolen
we have
from
if
us.
they wouldn't tax us so much
Well,
and waste all of it?
And waste it.
All right, one last quote from this article. It says, we're a poor city. It's not like the city has money sitting around that we can tap into. Oh, but the feds do.
Yeah.
You see the mindset of these people?
Yeah,
it's like, just gimme. And as long as it's for a good cause, it's okay. No, it's not okay.
It's not okay.
It's
and,
not okay.
And it's not to say it's not a good cause. That
never
is
said
not
that.
the point. We have to start with the basics. How about we have functioning roads, how about if the planes, if the FAA functions properly? I mean, just the very basics. Crime prevention. We need lots of cops in this city.
But we don't
and
need
everywhere
the feds
in America.
granting money to the municipalities.
No, we
to do that.
don't.
The feds have
Leave us
no money.
alone. Quit taking our money.
And stop pretending that money that comes from the feds is like a gift from the gods,
No,
from
it
outer
comes
space.
from you.
Yes.
Yeah, you're
and
being
future
robbed.
generations are seriously paying a price
Well,
already.
Every single study that you read says Social Security is done in 12 years. So for all of you, oh my God, they're gonna bankrupt Social Security. Well, that's exactly true. If we continue on this course of $36 trillion in debt, $120 trillion unfunded liabilities, we are done.
Let me
we
ask you-
cannot afford this insanity that the Democrats are screaming.
They're fighting
They're
in federal
fighting.
court to keep
I
it.
mean, I have to say, their ability to shock me is never ending.
All right, we only have
They're
90 seconds
insane.
to go. I have a question for you because I remember back in 2009, according to the Federal Reserve, the unfunded liabilities were $99.5 trillion. So if it's only 120 now, I'd be surprised. But did you just read this recently?
I heard Bannon say that.
Well, he's probably right. I
Yeah.
just and there's different ways to count that. I've seen others that were
And I could be
more
wrong.
like
That
250.
I may have misunderstood him. So it's a lot. That's all I can say is we are Baldy and the Blonde, and we will see you next week. Follow us on X at Baldy Blonde and on YouTube.
We still got a minute to go.
Oh, dude, I thought that. Oh, look at that. Sorry, y'all. We're still
You're gonna
there.
have to tap dance for a minute. What is, yeah,
Oh, I have
she
no,
misread the
I have no
clock.
problem continuing to talk. Believe me.
well,
you know.
yeah, you got that. So
But yeah, so
the bottom line to all of this is everything is waste, fraud, and abuse.
Everything.
Right? It always comes down to who gets to define the terms. Because if you ask these lefties, that's not waste, it's not fraud, and it's not abuse. So let's just roll with it. Everything's fine. Because the problem is what they're doing legally is what's really what they do illegally. Okay, fine, let's go after it. The problem is all this stuff that they do has been legal all this time, and we're $37 trillion in debt.
it's not that. Yeah, it's not that it's illegal. They hide it from us. They are freaking out that we are actually getting to see what's going on in our own country. So let me say it again. We're Baldy and the Blonde, and we will be back next week, Wednesday at 4. Follow us on X at Baldy Blonde.